Good morning. This is Bob Iacchino along with my co-founder Mike Arnold from Path Trading Partners. It is April 18th. This is an AM Path Chat covering the FX markets. Some overnight stuff. On your screen right now you see an Aussie US dollar chart. One thing you guys should know if you trade FX is that sort of an odd metal, an odd base metal that kind of dictates whether or not the Aussie is going to stay in a recent trend is iron ore. The Australian dollar versus the US dollar is very correlated. It's about a 97% correlation to iron ore. And iron ore is usually pretty stable, but it has taken a hit. It's fallen more than 7% in the last 2 days, despite the better than expected Chinese GDP data that I talked about in last night's Path Chat. Looking over to the euro, I haven't talked about it in any Path Chat yet, but there was a referendum in Turkey over the weekend. It would have been Sunday night. That bodes well for the euro. Turkey gave their current president, Erdogan, sweeping new powers to basically adjust the constitution. It's essentially the referendum that was voted down in Italy was voted yes in Turkey. So the president has made himself president up to 2029. There won't be a new president unless there's some sort of challenge to the vote until 2029 in Turkey. Now, Turkey has been trying to gain admittance into the European Union. They're actually not one of the countries trying to leave, but they've been trying to gain admittance into the European Union, and that admittance had been blocked recently. There were no more talks going forward shortly after Brexit. So President Erdogan essentially went on a bit of a nationalistic rant after that, saying that he would defy the agreement between the EU and Turkey that Turkey continues to keep refugees from the region, from all of the wars going on in the region. Turkey has been the sort of safe haven for a lot of those refugees on their way to the EU. And the EU convinced Turkey to keep all of these. And in exchange for that, they would get aid and they would get continued talks on admittance to the EU. Well, since they froze the talks, Erdogan has said that he was going to open the gates and let everyone go to Europe that wanted to go to Europe. Now, Turkey's financial situation has made it a positive for the euro, the fact that the talks have stopped. And with Erdogan now talking very anti-EU, that has helped the European Union, it's helped the euro. Now, most importantly for the bid you've seen in the euro in the last 2 days, which is on your screen right now, is the latest French polls. The latest French polls has the centrist candidate, Emmanuel Macron, with a comfortable lead in the early May runoff election between whoever are the two top vote getters in the first election, the primary election. Now, there's 11 candidates in the primary election. That happens April 23rd. And then the first week of May, after that election, the two top vote getters, assuming nobody gets 51%, which nobody will in this particular field, then the top two vote getters have a runoff in early May. Right now, it shows that Macron would beat Le Pen by 62%. That's what the latest poll shows. And they're all pretty much neck and neck. So in the early election, the April 23rd election, both Macron and Le Pen get 22%, 23%, 24%, depending on which poll you're looking at. And if you're wondering who Le Pen is, she's the right-wing candidate. Macron is the centrist. And then coming in third is the far left-wing candidate, who, by the way, is also anti-EU. But right now, it looks like the centrist pro-EU candidate's going to win that election. Again, we've all seen how polls have been in their predictive qualities lately. So there's still a full 1/3 of the French populace saying they're undecided and might abstain from the election. That would be bad for the centrist candidate. And lastly, tensions continue to rise with North Korea. Mike Pence saying at a press conference in Japan that all options, including unilateral military action, are on the table. The Russia-Syria thing has really fell by the wayside. This North Korea thing has taken hold. So far, it doesn't look like President Xi and China have made any sort of moves toward joining sanctions against North Korea. They're the only one that really has any influence. But the tensions between North Korea and the U.S., which by default includes Japan and South Korea, are really kind of, I wouldn't even call them accelerating, but they are not dying down like Syria or Russia has. But anyway, even with all that exciting market-moving news, we still only trade price action. So let me turn it over to Mike to let you know what he is seeing on the charts. Mikey, it is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Euro US dollar. We're looking, this is sort of a key level to watch today. We have a defining point on the trend line, which is coming in at 106.77, and we have the move into a clear path, which comes in really at 106.80. So if we're watching for a move, then this is a longer term move. But if we get a close above that 106.80 level, we could see a potential retracement of most, if not all, of this move. Let me put it back on the weekly. That would take us back to this most recent area, which our target on that trend line trade would be about 108.48 longer term. And that's a multi-day move. So just pointing that out. Continued strength today. If we push through today's highs, which are already 106.90, we're looking for the 106.96 to 107 area as minor resistance. And then beyond that, there's really not any resistance or price levels we can project until we get to about the 107.33. Pullback, you're going to see some pretty substantial support at this 106.79 to 80 level right in here. There's a lot of prior support. We have a defining point in there and everything else. If that is broken, we are watching for 106.66. And then below that, key support coming in. We have a rising 8, and we have GAN levels 106.54 to 106.49 is the next pullback support. Over to the pound, which is very strong today. You see big rally up above a lot of levels. We finally broke through this major resistance level, and now it's really taken off to the upside. On a continued move higher, 127.06, followed by 127.30. Just switch over to the weekly. You can see that then if we get above there, 127.30 is here, then we'd really be looking for a pretty quick run to the 129.04 where we have a flattening out 50-week and a prior breakdown target zone clear path level. If we get a pullback, support 126.59 followed by 126.31. And then there's nothing really, there's some highs and everything. We have the highs from a couple days ago at 125.96 and then on a bigger pullback, 125.54. US dollar, Japanese yen reached up so far, found some resistance at the declining 8. So that's going to be key. If it does rally back up, 109.25 is going to be resistance. And if that's broken, 109.37. And then there again, if yen turns around and moves higher on the chart, we're not looking for any other resistance, so about the 109.97. Right now, we're trading at some key GAN areas and a prior support level, 108.77. If that is broken, we're going to watch for a retest of yesterday's lows right around 108.13. And once that's broken, we're looking for 107.88. And then on a really strong down move, anytime this low is broken from yesterday, the full target is the 107.03 level. US dollar, Swiss franc, heading lower, finding some support right now. We have anywhere from 99.88 to 1,000 area. Everything in here is going to be key support. Once that's broken, if it is 99.76, and then below that 99.60. Turn around and on a move higher, we're looking for minor resistance at 100.22. Then we have 100.34, then 100.45 overhead resistance. Switching over to the Aussie, probably going to get a redrawn upper trend line tonight. Right now, if it continues down, very key support between 75.24 and 75.28 right in here. And then below that, not much until we get down to the 74.98 to 75 level. If it turns and goes back higher, minor resistance at 75.64 and then 75.76, and then we on a move higher through those levels, we're looking at the retest of a significant level at 75.93. Over to the CAD. tested both sides of this breakout range, now back into it, testing our declining trend line right now, coming in at 133.70. If that is broken, next level up higher is 133.93, and then there's really nothing until about the 134.15. On a pullback, minor support 133.62. Then we're looking at 133.46 as more significant support where the moving averages come in. And then we have a significant level below that, 133.31. Finally, US dollar Mexican peso. Nice little shelf here, which is made right around the 1848.83 level. So if that level is broken to the downside, our full target still is 1830.00 to the downside. On a continued move higher, already found some resistance at the EMA 1856.54. So on a move back higher, that's going to be the first target. Then we have a declining trend line. And then the really big resistance comes in about 1861.18. That's all we have for you. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Mike. As you see here, this huge move in the British pound, something I neglected to mention in my early intro, British Prime Minister Theresa May called for a snap election in the UK. Now, in the past, she had said that there should not be an election until 2018. But given that her party has about a 20% lead in the polls, it's probably a little bit of political opportunism. She's asking for an even stronger mandate in what she calls the decisions she has to make. So she called for a June election, and she's asking for the country's support to vote for her again for prime minister. That would give her a lot of public power to push the things through in her negotiations with the EU. That's it. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you guys in the next Path Chat. Cheers, everyone.